Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading today from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Second Canto, Chapter 9, text number 35. This chapter is entitled Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. Text 35. Yatha mahanti bhutani bhuteshu chavacheshvanu pravishtani apravishtani tata teshu nateshvaham. Yatha, just as, mahanti, the universal, bhutani, elements, bhuteshu ucha avacheshu, in the minute and gigantic. Anu, after, pravishtani, entered, apravishtani, not entered. Tata, so, teshu, in them, na, not, teshu, in them, aham, myself. Translation. O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created and at the same time I am outside of everything. Srila Prabhupada's purport to this text is lengthy, so please pay attention. The great elements of material creation, namely earth, water, fire, air and ether, all enter into the body of all manifested entities. The seas, mountains, aquatics, plants, reptiles, birds, beasts, human beings, demigods and everyone materially manifested. And at the same time such elements are differently situated. In the developed stage of consciousness, the human being can study both physiological and physical science, but the basic principles of such sciences are nothing but the material elements and nothing more. The body of the human being and the body of the mountain, as also the bodies of the demigods, including Brahma, are all of the same ingredients, earth, water, etc., and at the same time the elements are beyond the body. The elements were created first, and therefore they entered into the bodily construction later. But in both circumstances they entered the cosmos and also did not enter. Similarly, the Supreme Lord by his different energies, namely the internal and external, is within everything in the manifested cosmos, and at the same time he is outside of everything, situated in the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha Loka, as described before. This is very nicely stated in the Brahma Samhita 537 as follows. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratipavitabis Tabhirya Eva Nijarupataya Kalabhi Goloka Eva Nivasat Yakilatma Bhuto Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship the personality of Godhead Govinda, who by expansion of his internal potency of transcendental existence, knowledge and bliss, enjoys in his own and expanded forms. Similarly, he enters into every atom of the creation. This expansion of his plenary parts is also more definitely explained in the same Brahma Samhita 535 as follows. Ekopyaso rachaitum jagadanda kotim yachchaktirasti jagadanda chayayarantaha andantarastha paramanu chayantarastham govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the personality of Godhead Govinda, who by one of his plenary portions enters into the existence of every universe and every particle of the atoms, and thus unlimitedly manifests his infinite energy all over the creation. The impersonalists can imagine or even perceive that the Supreme Brahman is thus all-pervading, and therefore they conclude that there is no possibility of his personal form. Herein lies the mystery of his transcendental knowledge. This mystery is transcendental love of Godhead, and one who is surcharged with such transcendental love of Godhead can without difficulty see the personality of Godhead in every atom and every movable or immovable object. At the same time, he can see the personality of Godhead in his own abode, Goloka, enjoying eternal pastimes with his eternal associates, who are also expansions of his transcendental existence. This vision is the real mystery of spiritual knowledge, as stated by the Lord in the beginning, Sarahasyam Tarangam Cha. This mystery is the most confidential part of the knowledge of the Supreme, and it is impossible for the mental speculators to discover by dint of intellectual gymnastics. The mystery can be revealed through the process recommended by Brahmaji in his Brahma Samhita 538 as follows. Premanjanachurita bhakti balochanena santa sadhaiva hridayeshu balokayanti yang shama sundaram achintya guna swarupam govindamari purusham tamahang bhajami. I worship the original personality of Godhead, Govinda, whom the pure devotees, their eyes smeared with the ointment of love of Godhead, always observe within their hearts. This Govinda, the original personality of Godhead, is Shama Sundar with all transcendental qualities. Therefore, although he is present in every atom, the Supreme Personality of Godhead may not be visible to the dry speculators. Still, the mystery is unfolded before the eyes of the pure devotees because their eyes are anointed with love of Godhead. And this love of Godhead can be attained only by the practice of transcendental loving service of the Lord and nothing else. The vision of the devotees is not ordinary. It is purified by the process of devotional service. In other words, as the universal elements are both within and without, similarly, the Lord's name, form, quality, pastimes, entourage, etc., as they are described in the revealed scriptures or as performed in the Vaikuntha Lokas, far, far beyond the material cosmic manifestation, are factually being televised in the heart of the devotee. The man with a poor fund of knowledge cannot understand, although by material science one can see things far away by means of television. Factually, the spiritually developed person is able to have the television of the kingdom of God always reflected within his heart. That is the mystery of knowledge of the personality of Godhead. The Lord can award anyone and everyone liberation, mukti, from the bondage of material existence. Yet he rarely awards the privilege of love of Godhead, as confirmed by Narada. Muktim dadhati kahichit sma na bhakti yogam. This transcendental devotional service of the Lord is so wonderful that the occupation keeps the deserving devotee always wrapped in psychological activities, without deviation from the absolute touch. Thus, love of Godhead developed in the heart of the devotee is a great mystery. Brahmaji previously told Narada that the desires of Brahmaji are never unfulfilled because he is always absorbed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Nor has he any desire in his heart save and except the transcendental service of the Lord. That is the beauty and mystery of the process of Bhakti Yoga. As the Lord's desire is infallible because he is Achyuta, similarly, the desires of the devotees in the transcendental service of the Lord are also Achyuta, infallible. This is very difficult, however, for the layman to understand without knowledge of the mystery of devotional service, as it is very difficult to know the potency of touchstone. As touchstone is rarely found, a pure devotee of the Lord is also rarely to be seen, even amongst millions of liberated souls. Kotish Vapi Mahamune. Out of all kinds of perfections attained by the process of knowledge, yoga perfection in devotional service is the highest of all and the most mysterious also, even more mysterious than the 8 kinds of mystic perfection attained by the process of yogic performances. In the Bhagavad Gita 1864, the Lord therefore advised Arjuna about this Bhakti Yoga. Sarva guhyatamam bhuya shinu me paramam vachaha. Just hear from me again about the most confidential part of the instructions in Bhagavad Gita. The same was confirmed by Brahmaji to Narada in the following words. Idam Bhagavatam nama yanme bhagavatoditam sangrahoyam vibhutinam tam etad vipluli kuru. Brahmaji said to Narada, whatever I have spoken to you about the Bhagavatam was explained to me by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and I am advising you to expand these topics nicely so that people may easily understand the mysterious Bhakti Yoga by transcendental loving service to the Lord. It is to be noted here that the mystery of Bhakti Yoga was disclosed to Brahmaji by the Lord himself. Brahmaji explained the same mystery to Narada, Narada explained it to Vyasa, Vyasa explained it to Shukadeva Goswami, and that same knowledge is coming down in the unalloyed chain of disciplic succession. If one is fortunate enough to have received the knowledge in the transcendental disciplic succession, surely he will have the chance to understand the mystery of the Lord and that of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the sound incarnation of the Lord. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasma Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivashadi Gaura Bhakta Brindo. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Remember in the last class where we discussed the original Bhagavatam, there were 4 key verses which constitute that original presentation of the Bhagavatam by Lord Krishna himself to Lord Brahma. And the first 2 of those verses present in a nutshell Sambandha Gyan, knowledge of the relationship between Krishna and his energies. First of all, we understand in the first text, Aham me vasam eva agre. Krishna says that before the creation, I existed. In other words, my form is eternal. And during the creation, Krishna exists in his original eternal form and also in the form of the cosmic manifestation, because the cosmic manifestation is the material form of the Lord. It's an expansion of his material energy. And because the energy and the energetic are non-different, Shakti Matura Beda, therefore the material cosmic manifestation is also a form of the Lord, although not the original form. It's a temporary manifestation of Krishna. So during that creation, Krishna exists as the creation and also in his spiritual form in Vaikuntha. And then after the annihilation of the cosmos, Krishna explains, I also exist again as in his eternal form as the Lord of the spiritual world. So this is the beginning understanding of the Lord's spiritual and material forms. And then in the next text, the second Chatushloki, second of the 4 original verses that compose the Bhagavatam, Krishna explains more about how his energies are working, specifically how his illusory energy, the cosmic manifestation, is working. So that cosmic manifestation he compares to a reflection of reality in the darkness of ignorance. That is his summary of what we call life. The reflection of reality in the darkness of ignorance. What does that mean? It means that Krishna's material form, or the cosmic manifestation, his illusory energy, it has the effect of covering Krishna's spiritual form from the eyes of the conditioned souls. That's us. That's why when we look at the world around us, instead of seeing it as it actually is, which is one of Krishna's energies, and therefore always connected to Krishna, always dependent on Krishna, and always meant to be engaged for the pleasure of Krishna, we just see that this is my world and it's meant for my enjoyment. So that is the covering potency of Krishna's illusory energy. We're experiencing the reflection of reality, in other words, the reflection of the spiritual world in the darkness of ignorance. The darkness of ignorance means not seeing that this is Krishna's world, and therefore it's meant for Krishna's pleasure. So Krishna said in that verse, whatever you see in existence, if it's not connected to me, has no reality. No, it is my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. So this is how Krishna's illusory energy works on us, on the conditioned souls. Covers over the connection between Krishna and his energy. And makes us think that it's ours. It's ours to control, it's ours to enjoy. Ishvaraham aham bhogi. I am the controller, I am the enjoyer of the material world. At the same time, that effect, that illusory effect, does not affect Krishna himself. Krishna is never affected by the illusions of the material world, because the material world is just one of his energies. So these are the first 2 verses of the original Bhagavatam, explaining Sambandha, the relationship between Krishna and his energies. Then we get to today's verse, which reveals the confidential essence of the Bhagavatam. And we'll discuss that in this class. That confidential essence is revealed in an esoteric way, an esoteric form in this verse. In other words, it's not easily understood simply by an analysis of the Sanskrit. And then we have the final verse, which explains abhidaya, the process to realize the confidential essence of Krishna's presentation in the verse we're going to speak on today. That confidential essence is called prayojan, or the ultimate goal of life. So that process explained in the 4th verse is called abhidaya or sadhana bhakti. So there's a little summary of what we discussed in the last class about the original Bhagavatam in 4 verses. So this particular class is on the 3rd verse, which, as we said, reveals the Bhagavatam's confidential essence, prayojana, the ultimate goal of life. Now, before we get to that confidential essence, let's have a little look at Srila Prabhupada's purport here, which is rather lengthy. We can have a look at some of the main points that he makes. So he explains Krishna's achintya shakti. Achintya shakti means inconceivable potency. So this is one of the problems, or this is one of the main problems that we have in understanding Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is that Krishna has achintya shakti, he has inconceivable potencies. So unless we understand and accept that, there's actually, as Jiva Goswami points out, there's no question of making any further progress in spiritual knowledge. The first thing that someone who's serious about understanding genuine spiritual knowledge has to grapple with is this principle of achintya shakti, inconceivable potency. Inconceivable potency means you can't understand how it works. It's achintya, it's inconceivable. So this is why so many people today have a problem with the descriptions Krishna gives in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Because with ordinary intelligence you cannot understand how Krishna's potencies are working. Remember, we heard about the second of the 4 Chatushloki verses where Krishna explained to Lord Brahma, my illusory energy covers over your intelligence. That means you can't understand what's really going on. And that's particularly true when trying to understand Krishna's achintya shakti, his inconceivable potencies. Now, there is a way to understand that, but we'll get to that later. That's part of the Bhagavatam's confidential essence. But let's have a look at what Krishna explains in the verse. So what he explains in this verse today is that the elements of the material world, earth, water, fire, air and ether, they all exist outside the cosmos, and they're used inside the cosmos to construct all the manifestations that we see. So similarly, he says, I exist both inside and outside of everything. Right? So like the material elements, they exist outside our body, but they also exist inside our body. So he says, similarly, I exist both within and without of everything that's created. Now, how does Krishna do that? He does it through his achintya shakti, through his inconceivable potency. You can't understand how he does it, but he has a potency that allows him to do anything that he wants, even if it appears to be materially impossible or inconceivable. So this is the first point Prabhupada makes in the purport. The next point is that that Krishna resides in the universe through his plenary expansion. So plenary expansion of Krishna is the Supersoul, Paramatma. So he's existing, as we heard in these verses from the Brahma Samhita, in the hearts of every living entity and in every atom. Krishna is there as the Supersoul. Prabhupada then also explains how the impersonalists who have no devotion, They can't understand the mystery of how Krishna is both all-pervading through his various potencies and through the supersoul and through his different incarnations, and at the same time he has his own independent existence in the spiritual world. Right? They can't understand that. They think that, well, if God has expanded himself into everything, then he has no individual existence beyond that expansion. But again, this is Krishna's Achincha Shakti. Krishna can expand himself unlimitedly and still remain the same person, unaffected by his expansions. So Srila Prabhupada says in his purport, this vision is the real mystery of spiritual knowledge, as stated by the Lord in the beginning, Sarahasyam Tarangam Cha. So that was from the verse that we spoke on in the last class. Sarahasya, that means the confidential essence, and Taranga means sadhana bhakti. In other words, what he's saying is that you cannot understand this real mystery of spiritual knowledge, you cannot perceive it without following the process of sadhana bhakti and actually attaining this confidential essence. This mystery, he says, is the most confidential part of the knowledge of the Supreme, and it is impossible for the mental speculators to discover by dint of intellectual gymnastics. Anyone here done any intellectual gymnastics before? If you think about it, it's a very graphic way that Prabhupada has explained this. Intellectual gymnastics. Everybody knows what gymnastics is, right? You see it on the Olympics. The people, jumping through rings and over hoops and swinging around and doing all these rolls and flips, and so you can imagine just doing that with your intelligence. Just in your mind, just flipping and jumping, and that's intellectual gymnastics. So by that process of mental speculation or intellectual gymnastics, it's impossible to understand this mystery of spiritual knowledge, how Krishna is simultaneously present in everything and at the same time has his own individual existence as the supreme person in the spiritual world, where he's enjoying eternal pastimes with his loving devotees. So the point is that the Lord can only be known as he is by loving devotional service. So now we're getting to this rahasya, this confidential essence. Right? So Prabhupada quotes that Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena, that because the devotees have this Premanjana, their eyes are tinged with the salve of love. Right? Prema means love. Anjana means like a salve or ointment. Like you might have some problem with your eyes. Like I got conjunctivitis when I came back from India recently. So I had to put these eye drops in my eyes to cure the disease. So when you have the eye drops, so to speak, of prema, of love for Krishna, then Charita, you can see bhakti through love, Vilochanena. So you can see through the eyes of love. And then you possess that qualification, rahasyam, to actually understand the mystery of the personality of Godhead, how he's present in everything and at the same time has his own personal existence. He's one with everything and at the same time different from everything. This is Achincha Bheda Bheda Tattva. Next, Prabhupada explains that as the material elements exist inside and outside of everything created. Right? That those who possess bhakti, or this specifically prema bhakti, they have these pastimes of the Lord in the spiritual world, so-called televised, as Prabhupada says, in their hearts, even though the pastimes themselves occur outside them in the spiritual world. Right. So this is very mysterious. If you possess this confidential essence of the Bhagavatam, prema bhakti, then you can have the Lord's pastimes in the spiritual world televised in your own heart. In other words, they're existing within you, even though they're also existing outside you in the spiritual world, in Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavan. Next point Prabhupada makes is that when it's said that Krishna is all-pervading, it doesn't mean that he can't have a personal form. It just means that form can only be seen by those who possess the rahasya, the confidential essence of Bhagavatam, prema bhakti, or love for Krishna. And that Krishna, he'll give liberation very easily, but he very rarely gives prema bhakti. Why is that? Because by that confidential essence of prema bhakti, he comes under the control of the devotee. Or more specifically, he comes under the control of the devotee's love. So therefore he very rarely gives it out. Only gives it out to those devotees who are extremely tested. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, thus love of Godhead developed in the heart of the devotee is a great mystery. Brahmaji previously told Narada that the desires of Brahmaji are never unfulfilled because he is always absorbed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, nor has he any desire in his heart save and except the transcendental service of the Lord. That is the beauty and mystery of the process of Bhakti Yoga. As the Lord's desire is infallible because he is achyuta, similarly the desires of the devotees in the transcendental service of the Lord are also achyuta, infallible. So, I'm sure everybody's experienced their desires being unfulfilled, desires being frustrated. Well, the secret to having your desires fulfilled, in fact, to having all your desires fulfilled, is to simply desire what Krishna desires. Because if you do that, because Krishna's desires are infallible, achyuta, then your desires will also be infallible. So devotional service is the most mysterious of all spiritual practices. This is the point Prabhupada makes. It's a great mystery. Prabhupada said, thus love of Godhead developed in the heart of the devotee is a great mystery. How is it that simply by performing devotional service one can see Krishna 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? How is it that simply by the process of devotional service one conquers the unconquerable Supreme Person? How is it that by devotional service one has the Lord's Leela, his pastimes, televised in his own heart, even though those pastimes are going on in Vaikuntha or in Goloka Vrindavan? Very mysterious. And then the final point Prabhupada makes here, or the final summary point, is that this extremely mysterious process of Bhakti Yoga can only be received and understood through the chain of disciplic succession. Prabhupada says, if one is fortunate enough to have received the knowledge of the transcendental in the transcendental disciplic succession, surely he will have the chance to understand the mystery of the Lord and that of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the sound incarnation of the Lord. All right. So there's a little summary then of Prabhupada's purport. Now, I wanted to read a little here from Jiva Goswami's commentary on this verse from his Sandarbhas. He's made some very interesting and revealing analysis of this most confidential essence of Srimad Bhagavatam through this particular verse. So this verse basically it's explaining the highest conclusion of tattva or reality, which is a Chincha Beta Beta tattva, as revealed by Lord Chaitanya. And we've explained that a little bit. But then indirectly, it's revealing the Bhagavatam's confidential essence, rahasyam, which was that word was contained in the verse that we spoke on in the last class. Rahasyam means confidential, secret, mysterious. Indirectly, this is being referred to in this verse. That confidential essence is prema bhakti. So we may wonder why this is explained in an indirect way. So in the Bhagavatam 11th canto, Krishna explains that the Vedas reveal truth in an esoteric, indirect way, and that he is pleased by that. Sometimes we read statements in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we think, or Nectar of Devotion, and we think, what does this mean? Like, what's going on? Couldn't it be explained, a little more simply? But actually, it's explained in a lot of the Shastras explain, particularly the subject of prema bhakti, in an indirect, esoteric way, on purpose. In other words, in a way that's hard to understand. And Krishna says he's pleased by that type of explanation, right? So we can think about our own lives and our own secrets, our own things that we keep very confidential, close to our heart. We don't just reveal those things to everybody. We only reveal those things to those who we trust, right? So who is it that Krishna trusts? Well, Krishna trusts his devotees. Basically, everybody else is untrustworthy, at least in Krishna's eyes. And Krishna only trusts those devotees with prema. They're the only devotees he trusts 100%. Right? So what he's revealing here in this confidential essence is prema bhakti. And those that have prema bhakti, they can understand it. Others will find it difficult. And Krishna specifically made it difficult because he only wants to reveal his confidential secret of prema bhakti to those who can actually appreciate it. So in this verse, today's verse from the Bhagavatam, that's 2:9:35, the third of the Chatushloki verses, he has spoken this secret essence of wisdom to Brahma, but he's done it in an indirect way. So In the Bhagavat Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami describes how this verse speaks of prema bhakti, and he explains how without pure love, prema, one cannot actually give up Maya. Right? And this would be the deepest meaning of the Bhagavad Gita verse, Rasavajam Rasopyasya Param Drishtva Navartate. Right? So unless one experiences a higher taste, specifically Bhakti Rasa, the secret essence of the Bhagavatam, then one's not going to be able to give up the lower taste, because we're all pleasure seeking by nature. We're all looking for a taste, we're looking for some juice, some kind of happiness. So the highest happiness is Bhakti Rasa. It's the happiness of loving exchanges with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, particularly those that go on in Vrindavan, between Krishna and the Brajbasis. So without attaining that highest taste of prema bhakti, one's not going to be able to actually give up Maya, the tastes of Maya, right? The tastes of illusion. This is how Jiva Goswami explains this verse. And he says that Krishna then explains the confidentiality of that love in this verse. The universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time I am outside of everything. See how it's a hidden explanation. He says that as the principal elements of creation, this is Jiva Goswami, as the principal elements of creation simultaneously remain outside created beings and still appear to have entered and are present in them, so also I, even though I have not entered this universe, being situated in Vaikuntha, appear to have entered and am present in the hearts of surrendered persons. Right, so this is Jiva Goswami explaining Krishna's confidential, what he's trying to secretly reveal through this verse. He says here the confidential essence is hinted at, pure loving devotion which brings the Supreme Soul under control and causes him to enter and be active in a soul's heart. So the Lord says, I manifest to my devotees inside in the activity of their minds and outside in the activity of their senses due to their possessing the rahasya. Remember, rahasya means secret, confidential. So what is that secret, confidential essence of Bhagavatam? That is prema bhakti. So to those who possess that secret, confidential essence, Krishna says, I manifest to them inside in the activities of their minds and outside in the activities of their senses. So just as the material elements, they exist inside and outside all created beings, Krishna says, for those who possess this secret essence, prema bhakti, I exist both inside them and outside them, and therefore they can't see anything but me. So for those devotees who are fortunate enough to have this great mercy from Krishna, they can't see anything but Krishna. Right? If Krishna's either present before them, right in front of their eyes, or if he's not, then he's present in their mind's eye. In this way they just see Krishna at every moment. Jiva Goswami goes on, this confidential essence, rahasya, is self-illuminating prema bhakti, which is composed of pure ecstasy. Because of their possessing this, my devotees perform no other activity. Thus Brahma told Narada, because I have caught hold of the lotus feet of Lord Hari with great zeal, whatever I say has never proven to have been false, nor is the progress of my mind ever deterred. nor are my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to matter. And Jiva Goswami says, this is the actual purport of the original Bhagavatam in 4 verses. In his purport, Srila Prabhupada quotes the Brahma Samhita 37 to show that Krishna stays in the spiritual world. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord. He resides in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha, who resembles his own spiritual figure and who embodies the ecstatic potency, Hladini. Their companions are her confidants, who embody extensions of her bodily form and who are imbued and permeated with ever-blissful spiritual rasa. He then quotes Brahma Samhita 5:38 to explain how Krishna enters the devotees' hearts. I worship the primeval Lord, Govinda, who is always seen by the devotees, whose eyes are anointed with the pulp of love. He is seen in his eternal form of Shyama Sundar, situated within the heart of the devotees. So now Jiva Goswami continues, what is called Rahasya, the greatest secret and most confidential essence, Prema Bhakti, is the most rare thing. Ordinary matters of this world are meant to cover and divert the eyes of evil and uninterested people from this. It is like that's a very interesting way to analyze what your senses and mind want to get into. Ordinary matters of this world are meant to cover and divert the eyes of evil and uninterested people from this. He says it is like a Chintamani gem hidden in a box. Thus the personality of Godhead has said, the Vedic seers deal in esoteric terms, and I am also pleased by such confidential descriptions. He says something is kept esoteric. Esoteric means hidden, or hard to understand, when it is a precious item, scarcely available and not to be given away. This has been described in many statements, such as, he sometimes bestows liberation, but hardly ever pure devotion. The personality of Godhead has also said this in his own words to his best devotees, Arjuna and Uddhava, in such statements as, because you are my very dear friend, I'm speaking to you my supreme instruction, the most confidential knowledge of all. Hear this from me, for it is for your benefit. So Krishna fulfills everyone's desires. That's what we're getting here. The materialists, they desire to see a world of sensual opportunities for control and enjoyment. So Krishna gives them that vision. Jnanis, they want to see the impersonal Brahman. So Krishna gives them that vision. Yogis, they want to see the super soul. So they also get that vision from Krishna. But only pure devotees can see Krishna continuously in his original spiritual form, as he explained in the first Chatusloki verse, because they possess the Rahasya, the confidential essence of Bhagavatam, Prema Bhakti. Now, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he expands on this text in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila chapter 24. It's Madhya Lila chapter 25, text 124 to 127. Gives a very nice expansion of today's verse. He says, this is Krishna speaking, supreme affection for me is called love of Godhead, and that is the ultimate goal of life. Let me explain by a practical example the natural characteristics of such love. The 5 material elements are existing inside and outside of every living entity. Similarly, I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, am manifest within the heart of the devotee as well as outside his body. As the material elements enter the bodies of all living beings and yet remain outside them all, I exist within all material creations and yet am not within them. a highly elevated devotee can bind me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his heart by love. Wherever he looks, he sees me and nothing else. This verse, today's verse from the Bhagavatam, is quoted also in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 1, text 55 by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And Prabhupada comments in his purport to that verse, he says, because of his development of transcendental attachment for the Supreme Lord, a surrendered soul feels the presence of his beloved everywhere, and all his senses are engaged in the loving service of the Lord. His eyes are engaged in seeing the beautiful couple, Sri Radha and Krishna, sitting on a decorated throne beneath a desire tree in the transcendental land of Vrindavan. His nose is engaged in smelling the spiritual aroma of the lotus feet of the Lord. Similarly, his ears are engaged in hearing messages from Vaikuntha, and his hands embrace the lotus feet of the Lord and his associates. Thus the Lord is manifested to a pure devotee from within and without. This is one of the mysteries of the devotional relationship, in which a devotee and the Lord are bound by a tie of spontaneous love. To achieve this love should be the goal of life for every living being. So here we have Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and Srila Prabhupada giving beautiful explanations here of this Rahasya, the Bhagavatam's confidential essence. Now, Jiva Goswami explains, taking this principle here to the zenith of the Braja Gopis, he explains their exalted position, that by virtue of their intense love for Krishna, they remain always in his association. And he uses part of Krishna's letter to the gopis. Remember, Krishna wrote his letter to the gopis, which was delivered by Uddhava and read to them by Uddhava, to express the confidential meaning of this third Chatushloki verse. So the verse that he refers to is Bhagavatam 10:47-29, right? The verse says, this is Krishna speaking to the gopis through his letter, which is being read by Uddhava. No, sorry, that's coming up. This is Jiva Goswami speaking about that verse. Superficially describing the all-pervading super-soul, Lord Krishna actually described the gopis' constant meditation on him and their uninterrupted swarasiki perception of him through strong feelings of separation in the following Srimad Bhagavatam verse. My dear gopis, just as the five material elements, earth, water, fire, air and ether, are all pervading in this material world and present in the bodies of all living entities, in the same way I am always present with you. I reside in your minds, senses and your life breath, for I have taken shelter in these places. So, he goes on to explain, Jiva Goswami, that the material elements are causes for one another. That is, ether is the cause of air, air of fire, fire of water, and water of earth. Each element's cause is situated in its effect. That is, ether is situated in air, air and fire, fire and water in earth. One can understand from this that Krishna, who is the cause of everything, is therefore situated in everything, because as a general rule, causes are always situated in their effects. So Krishna continues to the gopis. Even though we have been externally separated, I still always remain with you. Thus I am eternally situated in all of you, although I am not externally perceived as such. In which way am I within you? I am the refuge of the minds of all of you who are my only life. Were I not with you because of separation from me, even for a moment, your minds, etc., would be unable to exist. In other words, if Krishna wasn't actually with them, when Krishna left Vrindavan, they would have died. So how is he with them? He's with them in his aprakat form, his unmanifested form within their minds, due to them possessing that rahasya, confidential essence of prema bhakti. Or in answer to the expected question by the gopis to Krishna, in which form are you situated in us? Krishna answers, only in that form that is two-handed, dark-complexioned, and that plays the flute. In that form, I am the refuge of all of your minds. So there's more that we could go into here by the mercy of Jiva Goswami, but maybe that can be a topic for another class. Hopefully, at least in some kind of understandable way, we've addressed this topic of the Bhagavatam's confidential essence, rahasya or prema bhakti. So the conclusion is that the Bhagavatam's confidential essence is prema bhakti, which is the only means to understand Krishna's eternal form and his achintya shakti, inconceivable potency, which brings constant association with Krishna even in apparent separation, and which brings the all-pervading Lord under the control of the devotee, so much so that he never leaves the devotee's heart for a moment. This is the devotee who possesses the rahasya. Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anyone have any questions today?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for class.
Hare Krishna. Back to Jack. Back from the transcendental land.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you came back.
What's that?
I'm a little surprised you came back.
Well, I didn't really want to, but I thought since it's the mood of Prabhupada and to go from Vrindavan here to preach, then I should follow in their footsteps.
Hare Krishna.
And I thought if I did stay there, then the mercy I was getting would run out, because I felt like I was all the nectar I was getting there was because of all the service I was doing there. So
Hare Krishna.
My question is, you're talking about how the pure devotee can see the spiritual world televised in his heart. And I'm just wondering, as a practicing devotee, aspiring for that, I'm wondering, what does it look like as that kind of starts to awaken? Is it that it all kind of just happens all at once, or is it like a gradual, maybe a gradual thing where sometimes you get glimpses of it and then those glimpses become more and more, or is it like one day you're just in the kirtan and everything gets revealed and it just kind of goes from 0 to 100 really fast, or is it like a gradual awakening?
0 to 100 really fast. Well, Rupa Goswami's explained, generally speaking, bhakti is or the attainment of prema bhakti is a gradual process from shraddha through various stages of purification to prema. And as one goes through the various stages, then particularly after the platform of nishtha or steadiness, then one's perception is more and more purified and therefore more and more clear. However, until one actually gets to bhava, or the liberated platform, which is the preliminary stage of prema, then there's no real, you could say, constant vision of one's spiritual form, Krishna's spiritual form, the relationship. That's only revealed at that point. And even then it's not a full revelation, it's partial. Until one actually gets to prema, then it's not complete. It's like the examples given, prema suyankshu, bhava is like the sun ray of the sun of prema. So in the morning, before the sun has arisen, then you get up early, so I'm sure you see this. At some time it's just darkness, but then as the sun gradually rises, you start to be able to make out some shapes and forms. The sky starts to become lighter. Still there's darkness, but you can understand a little more than when there was just complete darkness. And as the sun gradually rises, the illumination increases. You can see more. And then there's that first ray of the rising sun coming above the horizon. And so that first ray of the rising sun is compared to bhava. That's the explanation given there in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Prema Suyankshu Samyabhak. So Prema, Surya, the sun of Prema, Ankshu, just the ray. So at that point then one can see one's spiritual identity, one can see Krishna directly, and one can understand to some degree one's service to Krishna as well. But the sun still hasn't fully risen, and it's only when the sun of prema fully rises that one can actually understand all the details of these things. So generally speaking, to answer your question, it's a gradual process, as the acharyas like Rupa Goswami have explained, and there are exceptions. There's also kripa siddha. One may, by the mercy of a pure devotee, or the mercy of Krishna himself, go from 0 to 100 very quickly. But that's the exception, and the exception proves the rule. The general rule is that one is going through the gradual process of from faith to love, from shraddha to prema. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Anybody else have a question? Okay. Thank you everyone for your good company, and wishing you all the best for a wonderful day in Krishna's service.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
My privilege, my pleasure.
Good job.
Look forward to seeing you all again soon. Hari Hari. Special well wishes for the last couple of days of Srila Prabhupada's marathon, for those who are participating in that great sacrifice of distributing transcendental knowledge. As Srila Prabhupada explains, there is no greater sacrifice a man can make than a sacrifice for the Sankirtan movement. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Gaura Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.